Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerd Steve, and today I'm joined by Brent Critchfield. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing really, really well. Thanks for having me on.
I'm a bit dyslexic at times. Is it Woe Studios or Studios Woe?
It's Studio Woe.
Yeah.
Studio Woe.
I love the name though. Studio Woe is awesome.
Yeah, Calamity and Woe. Our goal is to create.
Oh, it's right on your shirt. I'm such a moron.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at it.
So devastatingly awesome that it shakes the foundations of the world.
Yeah. So in the title, I told people we're gonna be talking about Mad Wizards and Battle Goats.
Oh yeah, nice. Nice.
So you're a game designer, a tabletop game designer, D&D player as well.
Yep.
And artist.
Yep.
So like you do all the fun things.
Yep. Though for Gruff, my wife does the illustration for Gruff, but I am like also a professional video game artist. So I do video game art, and then I do game design, and
yeah. So do you even have a desire to like leave your day job and do this full time?
I like my day job.
That's what I mean. You got like a cool job already.
Yeah, I have a dope job. I did do Gruff full time for about 5 years, and it was I had like like the bucket list of like if this guy calls me, I would change my my board game thing into more of a side hobby and jump on that. And that's basically what happened. I had my dream job sort of contact me and say like, hey, do you want to do art for us? And I was like, yes, please. So I jumped on that, and so I've been doing both now. So I'm in the middle of fulfilling the Gruff Whispers of Madness campaign right now.
What is Gruff for people that are not aware of in the Gruff know?
Okay, so Gruff is a tactical combat card game about mutated monster goats. So the idea is that once upon a time there are 3 billy goats Gruff, and they're trying to cross a bridge, and they get stopped by this troll that wanted to eat them, but the goats outsmarted the troll and knocked him off the bridge and killed him. And so the premise of Gruff is that event was the catalyst for a weaponized goat arms race. So you're this shepherd of woe, and you've got your ultimate team of the meanest, weirdest, and fattest goats that you've mutated using black magic and foul science and forbidden breeding practices, and now you're out trying to cross bridges, being stopped by other shepherds with their monster goats and fighting to the death. So that's the world of Gruff.
So what inspired you to create weaponized goats?
Actually, it was largely inspired by my wife. So my wife is a concept artist in the video game industry, and just kind of as an exercise, she started with bunnies. Actually, she's like, I'm gonna do a sketchbook full of bunnies. I'm gonna just see how many monster bunnies I can make, and did like 1,000 of these things. And then one day she was like, I'm changing it. I'm gonna do baby goats. So she started doing like sketchbooks full of these monster baby goats. And at the same time, I was trying to design like this tactical card game engine. And I was like, oh man, there's all these awesome baby monster goats, and I have a tactical combat card engine. We should squish them together and make something cool. And so that's what we did. So it's sort of like I had a game. It was about monster goats, and then eventually I was like, oh yeah, I've got 3 monster goats. That reminds me of that fairy tale. And then it became Gruff. So I had basically built it in the reverse order that you would think. You would think you'd have a premise, and then you would come to understand it, and then you would draw art, and it happened the opposite direction.
So you built the mechanics, had the mechanics, and you're like, these goats would work.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. But it is definitely like taken on a life of its own and has its own.
Yeah. How many expansions are there now?
This is the 5th. This is the 5th one, and kind of like the end of the like chapter, this first chapter of Gruff. So we even made this like silly like big box for it. So like this one will actually like contain all of the previous expansions in like one big master box. Yeah. So yeah, we've got 5 of them.
Is that a magnetic lid?
Yeah.
Nice. The box art is actually really cool on those.
Yeah. It's like I don't have an open one, but they're all like chompy monster faces.
Yeah.
That you could use as like you could put them in your D&D campaign as like a big mimic or monster head.
Yeah, like I guess when you had one of the Kickstarters going on, you had sponsored a video with us, so we did like a campaign setting video about
about
playing
Gruff.
about playing a gruff just because we thought it'd be fun and kooky kind of idea.
Yeah.
To have a summoner style class and just like beats the crap out of everybody with monster goats.
I did a homebrew one off just a couple days ago of Gruff, and did that, in 5e, like didn't actually change any of the core rules where you like summoning goats.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
everybody was adventurers, and there happens to be lots of monster goats around that you could kind of take on as
yeah,
cohorts
yeah.
to
I think
use
what
the
we
game's
actually
sort
ended
of.
up doing is like making like the different factions
Mhm.
as like different like rulers, and that they were weaponizing the goats, and that basically is what you said. I think it's been a
Yeah, I
few
think
years since we did it.
that's kind of what the story of the game sort of is too. Like you've got like 6 different factions in the world, and they're all sort of like vying for position in
Yeah,
uh in
what a shitty world to live in. Right? Like you've got like Cthulhu goats, chaos goats, and mad scientist goats.
that is totally the point of the game. I think it's lost on a lot of people, but the whole point is like if all you're gonna do is fight over whatever stupid thing you can, usually monster goats, like you're just gonna
Yeah.
make things miserable. You're gonna just make constant enemies, and it's just gonna get worse. And it makes for a crappy place to live, but a hilarious place to set a video game and a
And
card game.
and like your bad guys are the shepherds, right? But like you think about
Yeah,
it, like shepherds are generally considered kind of docile and not like super strong. They tend to flock, they're caretakers.
yeah.
Like completely the opposite of what your shepherds are.
Yeah, we have shepherds of woe with their
Yeah.
insidious plans and their monstrous herds.
So
Uh,
so Ted says you should do an expansion with all the bunny art.
oh yeah, that would be dope. I would. Yeah,
The
that's a
invasion
possibility
of
for
Easter,
us.
man. Hear me out. The invasion of Easter.
It's like Nightmare Before Christmas, but it's
Yeah, yeah. And like,
like.
so the Easter, you have the Easter bunny. You got to do it like your Easter, and the Easter bunny comes to take on and tackle the shepherds of woe.
That would be really really fun. Yeah, I like this is the end of the kind of this chapter, and so like I'm definitely like thinking about a lot of different ideas about like what does the next chapter in the world of Gruff look like, and
Have you taken it beyond just the board game? Even if conceptually, like is what you've said you're talking about chapters. This is like the fifth part of the first chapter,
uh-huh.
essentially. So that sounds like a story format to me. So what is the story of the Shepherds of Woe in the world of Gruff?
How granular do you want to get with that?
Whatever,
So
man. Let's get weird. Whatever you want to
let's
do.
let's get weird. Yeah. So yeah, the story of it. I would like to create like at least like the scaffolding of like a D&D campaign for
Yeah.
players to take. That's one of the reasons why I ran the homebrew is wanted to sort of test that out. But like the story is, so you have the three Billy Goats Gruff, and they beat a troll, and the bridges that the trolls were guarding are actually like really important bridges. They link between different universes. So they guard the webway that connects like your world to like the afterlife or to the realm of the dead or the realm of or just another prime material plane using like D&D fifth edition terms. And so when that troll went down, it unlocked these people that started, and they were kind of Viking bad guys anyway. And so as soon as they had the access to, they started raiding all these other places. And so, and that created like a military reaction from those places. So you have the Skull Clan, which is in kind of this realm of the dead, that started getting raided and attacked by these Viking goats. And so they had to use necromantic powers to raise up bone golem goats to fight. And so it created a reaction from them. And there's like a little tiny outpost in the middle of this area called the Betwixt. So the Betwixt is this like maddening universe of twisting MC Escher-ish sort of staircases and constant twilight that links all these different worlds. And so when you're playing in Gruff, all the fights you typically are happening out in the Betwixt. And yeah, and so there's the contraptions that are like this more mechanized version in the middle of the Betwixt. There's the Greenspan, which was a very idyllic place, but once they started getting raided and invaded by these Grendel goats, they're like, oh, we have to make desperate maneuvers. So they captured trolls, and then they like drew out troll snot and troll fluids and injected them into grubs and started grafting troll parts onto goats and created a plague and have like this whole army of plague goats. Yeah, and then you have like the Cthulhu goats that are more native to the Betwixt, and they're all fighting it out. So in this chapter of the game, there's this big incursion of goats that basically wipe the trolls out of existence. The trolls, though, were sort of there for a reason. They were there holding back the Cthulhu sort of presence from beyond the universe. And so once the trolls are out of the way, there's nothing to stop those guys from rushing back in. They rush back in and in this big invasion in Whispers of Madness and look like they're about to destroy the universe, but one of the goats, Fluttermind, sacrifices himself to seal the big bad away, and that ends that chapter and creates this time frame called the Age of Silence. That is the calm after that storm.
So is that chapter 2?
That's chapter 2. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's chapter 2.
So I thought you were so ridiculous that everyone decided goats were the way to go.
Yeah, goats are the way to go.
Is there a story reason for that other than, well, obviously goats beat trolls, so
I think it was just like the three billy goats gruff. Like, so it was the idea of like you look at the fairy tale. It's like, okay, so you have this gigantic, monstrous, awful creature that is underneath this bridge, and 3 goats are able to defeat it. Like, if you are those goats shepherds, how do you respond to that? Are you like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna keep eating these goats or milking them? It's like, no, I'm gonna weaponize my goats. I'm gonna
clearly the goat is the superior weapon.
Yeah. So the idea was just like, okay, so if that happened, like, what's the next logical step? And then just taking the next logical step into absurdity.
So technically the trolls are the good guys.
Oh yeah.
They're the real heroes of the story. They lost.
The real heroes of the story are the people that don't show up in the game. They're the ones that are minding their own business.
Yeah.
The trolls were kind of like guarding the exits to the world, stopping them from bleeding over. Also charging like horrible tolls that would basically prevent anybody from escaping their world. But yeah, they're kind of an important part of the ecosystem. I think that they've got a better claim to being the good guys than any of the humans and their goats.
Yeah,
they're all bad. They're all bad.
so what are there's 5 factions?
There's 6. So you've got the Viking goats, the Grundle goats that are like the original raiders and invaders. You've got the Skull Clan and the Funk Fiend that we talked about, and the Contraption goats that are kind of like the not really steampunk. They're more like but they're more like industrial sort of
mechanical.
Yeah, kind of mechanical. Yeah. And then you have the Stuffkin, which we introduced in the 4th set, which are plushy nightmare goats. They're what happens to your dreams when you forget them in the morning. They don't actually go away. They get absorbed into your stuffed animals until they become these writhing engines of destruction called Stuffkin. So those, did I miss a faction? I think that's it. Oh, and the deep things, the Cthulhu goats. Those are like, if someone or something gets lost out into this Betwixt, they start going crazy, and that opens up their minds for access to these creatures from beyond, and seeps into them and then twists them into their own sort of creations. So yeah, we have Cthulhu goats, we have plague goats, we have robot goats, we have undead goats, we have Viking goats, and we have plushy nightmare goats.
I feel like at some point you got to bring back the trolls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a thought that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Of like I've been thinking about the premise of like, okay, so like instead of the backstory I gave before, what if the backstory was, once upon a time, the 3 billy goats gruff killed an innocent troll that was minding his own business, and drove them to the brink of extinction, which caused them to unify into an army of trolls that is gonna get a swing back. That might be what chapter 2 is about. I don't know.
The troll faction.
Having like various factions.
Have you thought about doing like a webcomic or something?
Webcomic, video game, D&D series. It is just like a one-man show though, so my breadth of what I'm able to do while also doing full-time video game development and being a dad.
Yeah, that does
Yeah,
make it hard.
you get spread a little thin real quick.
Although it does sound like you have another illustrator on board, so that
Yeah, my
helps.
wife Virginia, she helps out and does her thing. Yeah, I'm looking over to her desk. She's out with the kids right now, but yeah,
Yeah,
she's amazing. Virginia Critchfield. Her work is awesome.
nice. And what kind of stuff does she do?
Currently, she's doing concept art for the same company that I work with, Airship Syndicate. But she's worked on at Riot Games on League of Legends. She's worked on, if you've heard of the video game Dauntless, she did a lot of work on Dauntless. She's worked on just a lot of AAA video games.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm working on a game that's coming out called The Ruined King, which is coming out fairly soon. Which is a collaboration with Riot Games, the guys that do League of Legends. And I worked on League of Legends for a couple of years too before I started doing growth.
Oh, nice. My son plays that a lot. I played for a little while, but then like I'm kind of compulsive, so I have to not play video games, or I don't get anything else done.
I'm that way too. Like I had to I have to cut myself off of certain types of video games.
Yeah, and I wasn't very good at it, so 12-year-olds were always doing my mom.
Yeah, that helps you cut it off, right?
I had to leave. All the 12-year-olds were really mean to me.
Yeah, they have just a lot more free time than we do.
Yeah. Better hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, better reflexes. Yeah, I just find that like, especially like as I get a little bit older, that like I don't like things that require me to collaborate with other people in real time with like high time dependency.
Yeah,
man, I just get stressed out like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what I liked about that game in particular?
Yeah.
Is like you could play a 30-minute or 45-minute game and it ends. It's over. Yeah. It's done, right?
Where it fits right into like a lunch break, like really easily.
Yeah, where, you know, I mean, that's not how it really works. But you just end up getting to another game after that. But in theory, you can just play and be done. But like if you're doing like Baldur's Gate or something like that, it's like, no, there's a whole storyline that you have to go through, right? And to get to the end and be done, technically. And then there's like all kinds of other stuff you can generally do or alternate storylines you could do. So like it seems like it never really ends. Or MMOs are even worse because you just are in the game world playing. Like I played like, what was it? City of Heroes?
Oh yeah. City of Heroes.
Or maybe I played the villain one. One of them I played. And it's like, yeah, you could just go around and do stuff forever and it never ends.
Yeah. It's like, here's your new part-time job.
Yeah, well, hopefully it just is only that. It could be even worse.
It could be worse. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you with the compulsion thing. That being said, like I just got into like 2 days ago. 2 days ago was the new launch, the new World of Warcraft expansion. So I was like, I wasn't gonna do anything with it, but my wife was like, "Remember how we used to play this way back in the day? We should hop on and check it out."
Oh like, no, okay, that sounds dangerous.
Let's try. So I stepped into that, and and
bro.
I usually like just hop onto the expansion for like a week.
Honestly, I've only played the real-time strategy World of Warcraft, and yeah, I used to play like the StarCraft as well.
Oh man, I used to play the heck out of some StarCraft.
Yeah,
Protoss Master Race,
yeah. So I was all about the Zerg, all about the Zergling rush.
Oh yeah, my buddy that I used to play with, he was Zergling rush. I had to come up with like a Protoss strategy to counter a Zergling rush, which was hard. Had to do like my 5 Zealot rush.
And then also it was always fun to like pop up tunnels and like the enemy bases.
You do the Nidus canals and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then you have the Ultralisk like springing up.
Oh yeah.
Well, they were the tank ones, right? They're just like big
they were
monsters.
The ones with, like the big scything teeth. Yeah, I was all about the Reaver drops and the carriers.
Yeah, or you'd be playing and you'd hear nuclear launch detected, nuclear launch detected, nuclear launch detected, and you're like, where the fuck are they?
Where are the dots?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And when I'm playing with the carriers, you have this like giant swarm of carriers. They're all clustered up, and you're like
Yeah.
trying to move them around to find out where the little red dot is,
Yeah.
so that you can get them away.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, everything gets nuked.
Yep.
Also, it was infected Terrans are fun, and stealing, stealing someone's. I forget what they were called, but basically their base that built the guys, you could steal it and fly it away.
Yeah.
And then you could build your infected Terrans from it.
The living the dream as a Protoss player is to mind control a drone, build the Zerg tech tree, and then get infected Terrans. Like take out the Terran player.
Yeah.
So you have all three factions.
Yeah. That could yes, I remember that did get ridiculous.
It's kind of a troll move though, because if you could do that, you could win the game any number of other ways.
Yeah. Well, it was the best, like, because like the Protoss needed more pylons for energy, and the humans needed what they need? They needed farms.
Supply. They had like the supply depots.
But not the Zerg. The Zerg need helper brains. So that's and it would always crack me up too when you have like a worker off doing his own thing. You're like, what the F are you doing? You're just standing there spinning.
Yeah, your farms are like flying, stealth detecting worker brains.
Yeah.
Your overseers, those are so cool.
Yeah, the overlords. I did a D&D one shot, and it was like an amalgamation of Zerg and aliens. Kind of was like the premise, like people went missing and they had to find them. So it totally like did the creep. I don't know. I like the creep. The creep is creepy, right?
Yeah.
As kind of like, and then having the people like being kind of like webbed up, and that something's bad's going to happen to them in the like the mucous membranes.
Nice.
For the players to find. And I think I took like NKEGs as my base monster. And then like mixed them with NPC classes in the back of the monster manual to come up with the different kinds of like alien creatures.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I kind of similar. Like, you ever play or familiar with the Warhammer 40,000 at all?
They like, I know what it is.
Yeah, I played the basically the Zerg equivalent in Warhammer 40K. I actually, like, way back in the day, like 7 years ago now, 8 years ago. Yeah. I actually was an artist on the Warhammer 40K MMO that didn't ever see the light of day, but I worked on it full time for a while.
Cool.
And made little critters. Yeah, I kind of fell in love with the Tyranids. They're the good guys in Warhammer 40K.
They're the good guys.
Yeah, everybody else is so awful that when you just have a mindless race that just wants to eat everything, you're like, I'm kind of pro Tyranids, considering how bad the rest of these guys are.
Yeah, I said, like, I only vaguely know like the lore and stuff for 40K.
It's dark.
And like the orcs are vegetables, and they're so weird. It's so weird. Like, they spawn their own ecosystem. So, so eventually that means, like, once they evolve to higher beings, they're like eating themselves, their own kind, essentially.
Yeah.
But
and they're all like low level psionic. They're not smart, but they have a psionic ability that if they believe something is happening, then it happens.
It's real for them.
They believe that red paint jobs make their vehicles drive faster.
So they do.
So if you paint your car red, then it gets additional speed in game. Like, the rules work that way.
Can you just paint everything red to make it faster?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they do.
No, I meant the miniatures. Like, your miniatures. Can you just? Yeah. So, like, I read a lot of the Warhammer fantasy novels. Gortrak and Felix, like, that was series like 20 plus books, I think. Yeah. And then some of the other stuff. So, like, more of what I knew was about
was fantasy.
Was the fantasy side, yeah.
I'm just kind of sticking my toe into that. Like, my wife picked up some the Age of Sigmar minis for D&D. She's like way into Ravenloft, and we ran a Ravenloft campaign with her for 2 years. We got to the end of the Curse of Strahd, and then she homebrewed like another year's worth of content on top of it. And fell in love with it. And then Age of Sigmar has some really cool like ghost units and
Uh,
spectral units, and so she started picking those up, and I was like, and they were all Age of Sigmar units, so I started picking up Age of Sigmar units as well and trying to learn about them. Stormcast Eternals happened to come in a box with stuff she wanted for other stuff, and so I've been kind of getting into it, painting them a lot.
yeah, the Warhammer universe is kind of cool. Like, there's like low level black powder. There's some steampunky stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah, you have like little Zeppelin-y dwarf guys or gnome guys. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and the Slayers are just crazy.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, I read a lot of those novels. It's been a while, so I've probably forgotten most of it. But
Yeah, I've kind of gotten into it from the minis. Like I've got the like, oh man, I'm forgetting his name. But the huge necromancer guy that's like the god of the undead.
oh yeah, and something, no something.
Nagash.
Yes,
Nagash.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and like I got into him for the mini because I was running Tomb of Annihilation and needed a mini for a Sararak, and so I got given him for either Christmas or for my birthday, and so it's kind of gotten me into Age of Sigmar just because I have the minis for other stuff. But yeah, Nagash, he's pretty dope.
it's also a very expensive hobby.
Yeah,
Like, I
yes.
never got into it. Like Ted, I think Ted fielded like a lizard folk army, and
Yeah.
some of his friends were into it. And I know my brother was looking to get in and do a
Honestly,
Skaven,
I don't play any of it at all. I just I
just like the
spend the money,
minis.
but I don't play it.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Well,
Yeah.
do you at least paint the minis?
Yeah. Yeah,
There
I
you
just
go.
started that. Yeah, I just started painting them. It was like one of those quarantine hobbies where I was like,
Yeah.
I've always kind of wanted to do this. So now that I've got a little bit of space, I'm going to start painting minis. But
Paint minis and bake bread.
paint minis, bake bread. But
Yeah.
then Gruff started needing to get shipped, and then like everything took
Yeah,
off.
these boxes aren't going to pack
Yeah,
themselves.
no, they're not. I wish.
Yeah,
But
you
but
need
I'm
somebody
almost
to
done.
do that for you.
Yeah, but like the latest Gruff campaign, like the backer count was just it was just low enough that I was like, nah. Oh, also it becomes complicated because I've got 5 expansions, and
Yeah.
when people back it, they're typically like adding on older expansions as well. So that means I have to like take all my inventory that I have at one warehouse and ship it to another warehouse for them to pack it, and it becomes really obnoxious. And then like getting the inventory back to me, I had companies fulfill them for the first 3 campaigns, and then I was like, I'll just do it myself. There's something really nice about doing it yourself too, which is like you're packing this game and you're like printing off the label, and you're like you realize like every single one of these boxes is somebody that supports you in some way. It makes you feel a little better.
Humanizes each box.
Yeah, humanizes each
Yeah.
box every time. I'm like, this guy, like, I wonder what he's about, and he got these things. These are the things he likes. That's cool.
Yeah. Although I feel like if you start daydreaming about who's getting each box, it's gonna be very counterproductive productive to getting things done.
That's true. No, you don't want to spend that much time doing it.
You you got a couple kids too. You can start a sweatshop.
Yeah, I mean, not in a legally culpable way, but no, yeah, my kids definitely help me with like taping boxes shut, and I have them like crumpling newsprint, so like it's for filling the boxes.
Yeah,
I have them on crumple paper duty, so
it's good.
they
That's
crumple that
good.
for me. Throw some Christmas spending money at them for crumpling paper for me.
Are the kids a fan of the game?
Yeah, they like it. They like it. It's my 12-year-old kind of has a grip on it. My 9-year-old kind of plays Gruff the way that like 9-year-olds play like Pokemon, which is like not kind of like make believe rules.
Yeah, yeah.
So not at the point where he's like diving deep into the strategy, but they're both kind of getting at that phase where they can kind of be my QA and testing department as well. So
Does there seem to be like a favorite faction?
I think everybody kind of has their own favorite factions. I like the deep things a
Yeah.
lot. I yeah, I have a friend. There's like funk fiend people that are like, I just love funk fiends, and they just love the plague goats. But it's
Yeah.
not for everybody. They're really gross. Like the
Yeah,
names
yeah.
of the cards are like Fling Flem and and gobbling crusts and they get really like really kind of grody. I've got another friend that's just all about the Grendel goats, kind of like Viking barbarian goats,
Yeah.
and he just wants to play them. Though you can mix them and match them. In fact, it's better if you do, but he just likes those. Yeah, I find that people have favorites, but there's not, at least not yet. There, even after developing this game for 8 years, there isn't like a dominant strat for the game. I feel like I
Do
kind
you
of
do you guys have like a community like Discord or something where people hang
yep
out and talk about it?
yep sure do. I should have come prepared with the link for that to share because that would have been awesome. I'll
Oh,
send it to
there's a
you. I'll
link to
send it
the
to you after the fact.
yeah. There's a link in the on the to the website. Does I mean the website probably sends people to those places? I would think, right?
If it doesn't, I'll hook it up after a chat.
Cool.
And but yeah, there's a Discord and yeah, where people talk about it. And when Gen Con was happening, we'd have a world tournament every year at Gen Con. So
Oh, nice.
to see, but it's a different deck every time that wins. So it has a lot more to do with the player than it does the deck, I think.
That seems fair enough. So in the tournaments, do you find that the decks are mixed, or do you find a lot of people like stick to their faction?
There's no, they're usually mixed. Like sticking to your faction just opens up a giant hole in your defenses. That one
Yeah.
guy that just plays Grendel, I was warning him, like he was driving up to Gen Con with me, and I was like, you should really swap out one of your Grendel goats because they're weak on this area and this area and this area. And if you brought in one other guy, and he did, and he actually won that year, so he swapped out
Okay.
one of his Grendel goats for one of those plushy nightmare goats, and so I don't know. It's kind of like in real life. If you like are completely insulated and you're myopic and you're surrounding yourself by like-minded people, you end up having weak spots where you weren't expecting it. Like open yourself up to new and different things, and you'll find yourself a more well-rounded person.
So the Gruff D&D campaign that you ran, what was the premise there?
So it was kind of set after the most recent expansion. So it was in like the my first foray into the Age of Silence. So the idea was everyone was getting together for this big party to celebrate like basically Gruff's equivalent of Armistice Day. They were all they have this big party to celebrate the end of the Deep Thing invasion, and a group of cultists kidnap the head librarian at the Stuffkin Citadel of Dreams. That used to be a place where all dreams were stored, but it got invaded by the Deep Things and kind of overthrown. His granddaughter gets kidnapped by evil cultists, and the adventurers have to wander through these abandoned libraries to try to rescue her.
Well, I mean, who's not evil in the world of Gruff?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so what the bad guys are trying to do is she's a dreamer. She's one of these people that can create stuffkin, and they're trying to harness the power of the Silver Girl's dreams to rip a hole in reality large enough for the this big giant deep thing guy called the Herald of Woe to rip through the into reality. And so when the adventurers find her, there's just this smaller aperture that's just big enough for the bad guy's arm. So the final fight is like was a cultist and this giant arm that's flailing through a portal trying to knock people off this platform. And
Oh, that's pretty cool.
the players go and they wake up the girl, and it slams the portal shut, and so it severs this guy's arm and it's flapping around the battlefield. And
Did they have to fight the dismembered arm?
no, it's a troll arm, so it turned to stone right away.
Oh, okay.
So it flails around and then froze. So but yeah, that's kind of the premise is like also without like with the trolls going extinct,
Yeah.
trolls all regenerate, and they sort of have this pheromone that suppresses the regeneration of trolls around them. But like the betwixt the bridges that link all the worlds, they're basically made out of troll stone, like dead trolls that are carved up into blocks. And so now that all the trolls are gone, all those stones start regenerating. And so there's a bunch of little trolls that are now wandering around everywhere, ambushing people on these bridges. So I basically took goblins and modified them into micro trolls that
nice.
that regenerate and ambush people. So Yeah, it was fun. I would run it again as a one shot. Maybe do a couple other from a couple different perspectives at different places in the world, trying to get my feel. I thought it would be a really good development tool for like understanding the World of Growth on a more granular level, running it as a D&D campaign. And I think I was right. Yeah, I think I understand it in a much better way. I kind of want to run some more of them to see what's going on.
Definitely sounds like it'll be fun to explore. And I mean, there's been some Kickstarters that have gone in like weird directions with 5e that have done pretty well.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, it might be a fun way to take it to learn more.
Well, yeah. It seems like Gruff is one of those things that you could take in a lot of different directions and develop it a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like a need for people to play it as an RPG, because I get people approach me all the time that are like, I really want to write this as a campaign setting, or like I did write this as a campaign setting. I ran a D&D campaign in the World of Gruff. Like I get people that tell me that all the time. So I'm like, all right, if people are taking the volition to do this, like maybe I should.
Yeah, well, you know, so there was a Kickstarter not too long ago for an RPG called Maximum Apocalypse RPG, which is a board game. And it was literally like the guy that made the RPG just liked the board game and turned it into a game and pitched the pitched the publisher, and they're like, "Oh, I like this." You actually, yeah, it kicked. It did pretty well. I think we played like 3 sessions of it. It was fun. We did two games offline, and then we did one that we streamed on this channel. Cool. So yeah, it's weird because it's kind of like really crunchy, but then you start playing and it's not so crunchy. If that makes sense. Like the character sheet is like monstrous when you look at it, because there's like so much stuff. But then at the same time, once you've realized, oh, you only have to look at these spots, it's not so bad.
Yeah, you just fall into like, it becomes more intuitive as you go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like they came up with some really cool mechanisms for like for salvaging and making things as you would do in an apocalypse, right? Cool. Where it's like everything is just like pieces. Yep. And it's like when you have X amount of pieces, you can do stuff with them, but it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of what those pieces are.
Yeah.
So it makes it just work. And the concept is, you know, the apocalypse has happened, but it's not just a apocalypse. There's like 10 different ones, and they all happen at once. It's like aliens, robot uprising, big oil fail.
Set in the year 2020, huh?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Kaiju. So like we're playing and we're like zombie apocalypse. So we're playing and like we all have like a different apocalypse we've survived. So yeah. So yeah.
Oh, is that like part of your character tree? Is like what type of apocalypse?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was actually part of like when you build the character, it makes them better at certain things. Depending on the deciding factors when you build a character were like there's like a class, a secondary class, how old you were, and then what apocalypse you survived.
Nice.
And all that would kind of like define your character traits.
So was it a fifth edition?
Oh no, this is its own system. It was a D100 under.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so you only use the D100 pretty much, and it was a lot of fun to play. But that was an example of someone just taking, you know, someone else's, you know, tabletop board game and going, hey, this would be a cool RPG. And it just so happens that the company is kind of local to us. It's in Delaware, so that's not really very far from us. And a buddy of ours is a game designer. He did Barricades and Set a Watch.
Yeah.
And the Set a Watch game had done pretty well. And he had, you know, worked with his publisher. And like the publisher knew that he was into RPGs as well. So they brought him in to kind of help somewhat, you know, with it and kind of like kind of take a look at it. And then once he got involved, because he was actually in our D&D group, you know, he reached out to us, was like, hey, do you want to play this game and check it out? We're like, my first question always is, how big's the book? How much homework's required?
Yeah, I agree. You kind of need to hook me fast if I'm going to learn a different system.
Yeah, well, it's not that too. It's just like, well, what kind of a commitment are you asking for?
Right.
Is
I've gotten really excited about just running one offs or like two offs and like committing to like we're just gonna do this for like 3 weekends and that's it. Because like people that are like, hey Brent, you want to run this like role playing game with me? I'm like, for the rest of my life, like
forever?
forever.
Do we need a priest and nuptials for this? What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like you, but I don't know if I want to get married immediately.
Yeah, no, like even our long term games, we do that now. We if we start a new game, we're like, well, how many sessions do we want to play of this game? How long is it going to be? And then when we get to the end, we go, okay, what are we going to do now? Are we going to do another 12 of this? Or are we going to? So I found that's been really great for us for just finishing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it just like we've had so many games over the years that would just fizzle and fall by the wayside, and like, oh, we'll go back to this at some point, and you never go back to it. But by going like by making that commitment in the beginning of the game, I feel like for us anyway, it's helped make sure the games have kind of gotten done, and that's been kind of like a refinement of our process.
Yeah, nice.
So when we start a 5th edition, we would each like meet. Ted would run a game, I would run a game, and then we ended up with a 3rd GM that would run a game. So we were like, everyone was only running once a month, so it was manageable. Yeah, it's not like when we were kids and it didn't matter. Like you just did D&D all the time. You didn't have to worry about doing anything else. But yeah, that made it really manageable. So like that was the first time we ever took campaigns from level 1 to level 20 and like finished them.
Yeah, I've only done that once in my entire life. I've only gone 1 to 20 once.
So yeah, so we've got 2 of them now that we did that with. And then there was another game I ran online, and the players wanted to start a little bit higher level, so we started at like 5th or 6th, and we took that one to 20.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Strahd Must Die?
Strahd Must Die. Yes and no. I know those words. I've heard it somewhere, and it's like it's like a Strahd one shot, right?
Yeah, it's like a Strahd one shot or 2 shot. The idea is that like this is my wife does this on Halloween. I don't remember where she got the idea from, so sorry if I'm not crediting the guy that originally came up with it. But the idea is that like you go into Castle Ravenloft.
Is it a DM's Guild thing? I think maybe it's a DM's Guild thing.
Yeah, I think it's a DM's Guild thing. She's in that. And like at like 6 p.m. like real time, you enter into Strahd's castle, and then at like midnight, Strahd starts hunting you, and then you have like an encounter with Strahd like at stroke of 12, and then it's done. Like you walk into the castle level 12. You try to get whatever gear you can to fight Strahd in a mad dash for the next couple hours.
Yeah.
And then you kill Strahd. Now we're all like too old to stay up later than midnight, so we called it at midnight and then picked up on the Strahd fight on the next night. But I actually want to do that for Christmas and do like Santa Must Die or Krampus Must Die or something like that. And I wanted to like pick your brains about like what would be some good like resources for making an evil frost wizard's castle or something like that.
You know what you could do?
This great book out of the box recently, and it has all sorts of great resources in it for cool encounters.
So I ran from Frog God Games, Orcus Claws.
Orcus Claws?
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
And like, it's not a good one shot.
No.
Because it's too long, right? Like, I don't like.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran this for. I ran this for a group, and they're like 17th level, and it's made for like 3rd to 5th level characters or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever. And I just converted everything on the fly. But
like at the table.
Yeah. I was just like, I just double their to hit, their to damage, their hit points, up their armor class, like.
And I make a 17th level goblin.
But so it worked out pretty well. But I must say, like, it was perfect for a one shot for us, only because, again, they were 17th level. And there's like, you have to go up a mountain to get to Orcus Claus' lair. And the sorcerer's like, yeah, I'm just going to wish us from here to there. So it's skipping, skipping that the journey part, right? Which there's a few encounters, but yeah, it's got like animated evil snowmen and reindeer, and the elves that he uses.
Man, that's everything I want. Okay, I gotta look that up.
Yeah. Frog God Games Orcus Claws,
Frog
and
God.
yeah, Frog God, and then Orcus Claws themselves. He he actually wrecked the party because he just had an ability where he could control one of the players, and he grabbed the most damaging of all the players who failed their saves, and the player's like, do I have to really do this like I'm trying to take people out? Or I'm like, look, man, you're charmed. You do what you need. You tell me what you need to do. And he reluctantly leaned into it. And he was a battle master ranger.
Oh, and he just wrecked you guys, huh?
And he just wrecked them. Like, so there's two goblin brothers based off of juggalos, which, so they're gobblos.
Like Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was until they got into my game, and then I found this deep dark hole of humanity, researching what juggalos were. And so that's what they were playing, and so
Juggalo goblins.
Yeah, and
man, I need to take that idea. That's so good.
It was pretty good, and then the other juggalo or gobolo was a ranger assassin that does a lot of damage. So he just like unloaded on his brother, and I think dropped them.
Oh man!
Because he pulled out all the stops. He was off his battle master dice, action surged.
Oh man!
It was so good.
Charm is like domination is so strong. Like you get an action economy swing. You get to take one of their strongest guys out of the field.
Yeah. And if you get someone that really leans into it, it's good. Like, I was always disappointed that my longtime main never got controlled. I just wanted to steal.
Oh, because you would just obliterate.
Yeah, I wanted to steal and strike the party. So
I would always get like really logistic about whatever I'd be mind controlled. Like mind control, Strahd would mind control my barbarian all the time because he's a barbarian, and so Strahd would be like you need to bring me this like item that I'm looking for, and so I would use our sending stone to call the airship and be like, hey, my friend Strahd is here. You know that item? Do you know where that is? I can't find it anywhere. Like, can you bring that down for me? Thanks. Bye. I think that's my whole action, guys. Sorry. So I'm not a good one to mind control.
Yeah. I don't know. I like it's not my fault. I have nothing to do with it. Blame the DM. It's my philosophy. And if you're gonna do it, why not? Yeah,
absolutely.
We're not super precious with our characters. No, at least I'm not. I'm definitely not super precious with the other players' characters.
I ran a whole campaign once with high kill rate, super disposable characters. Everyone had to roll as they lie. So it was and then but you got magic items when you rolled in a new character. So it was just a whole campaign about making as disposable of characters as you possibly can. And that was the Tomb of Annihilation campaign.
There's Dungeon Crawl Classics. I haven't actually played it, but they have this funnel system where you start with 8 characters. They're all level 0, and whatever survives, that's the character you're now going to play with at the end.
That's a good idea. I like it. I'm down.
You go through the stack. So Joe wants to ask his regular question of what's your favorite dragon? I'll expand it too. Do we got dragons in Gruff?
Do we have dragons in Gruff? We don't have dragons in Gruff. Gruff is about goats and trolls. So I've occasionally been tempted to write a dragon into the campaign.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it just makes it not about goats and trolls. When you have something I have godlike trolls, but I don't have a dragon that's sitting around in the campaign because I feel like it'd be a little bit
maybe a Viking worm.
Yeah, a giant Viking worm. That would be cool. Yeah, I could see emblazoned in the woodwork of the Grendel guys, like a dope ass dragon motif. Who's my favorite dragon though? Okay, so after the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, I was thinking about Bahamut and Tiamat a lot, and I was like, you got the mother of all evil dragons, you got the father of all good dragons. I'm like, I want like a dope, awesome dragon that's like the neutral dragon. That's
Yeah.
like he's like neutral but actively involved in just trying to create adventure, trying to create conflict for the purposes of creating heroes, whether good or bad, just trying to create cool stories. So I created a dragon called Gygax the Gray because I
Uh,
love Gary and he's awesome. So I was, as an homage, I made him, and he would what do you call it, polymorph, not really polymorph, but like it took on the visage of an innkeeper in basically my world's equivalent of Sigil. He was basically in a through a portal in the astral plane. He wasn't allowed into Sigil because he was godlike, but nobody knew that at the time. And so he uh, pulled some strings to get adventurers into his tavern, and then he faked his own death to just sort of see what would happen as these adventurers sort of saw what was going on. So I have this sort of like crux dragon that sort of is the father of Tiamat and Bahamut, and just sort of plays them against each other to try to create cool stories and create awesome heroes. That's his objective in life. But he's just kind of a homebrew thing. That might not have been what the question
no, that's
was.
fine. I often mutate the question to whatever to whatever the guest is about. So, do you usually play homebrew or usually use pre-written stuff?
Uh, for a long time, I was like, I really like. I when Tomb of Annihilation came out, I was like, I really want to play a really high kill count campaign,
Yeah.
and I definitely do not want to play a high kill count campaign with a homebrew because it changes the psychology on the table. Where
Mm.
it's like the nice thing about playing a pre-constructed campaign is that you get to hide behind it as a DM and push as hard as you can. You're like, sorry, it's just what this guy would have done. Like, don't blame me, blame Wizards of the Coast. They're the ones who
Yeah,
put it in
yeah.
there. Like it don't hold back at all.
Curse you, Chris Perkins.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, exactly. So I love running pre-constructed for that reason. But lately, I've been like, I feel like I get a lot of creative juice out of running a homebrew and just
Yeah.
see how players will mutate the world that I create. So Gruff obviously has been a homebrew for the
Yeah.
purposes of
That
saying
should just
like,
be your campaign world. The nations are gruff.
yeah,
And just
yeah,
like that the war between the shepherds of woe is just
yeah,
the backdrop. I mean that almost feels like this war torn post apocalyptic like desolate setting
yeah.
where
It's
the
bleak.
yeah where the normal folk, the small folk, are just in the constant meat grinder of this world
Yep,
trying to
yep,
survive.
yep. Trying to avoid anybody with goats. I'm like, no
Pretty
thanks.
much.
I'll pass.
They're all vegetarians.
Yeah, we're out of this. Yeah, I've been wanting to do it as a series of one shots where I'm like
Yeah.
take origin in different parts of the world and just sort of see. I mean, not one shots, but more like micro adventures of like 4 to 5 session adventures that like chew through and explore. Because like, yeah, your world changes based on the players. Like you see how they interact with it and what they want to do. You realize like, oh, like I didn't even realize this thing was here until my player like started asking questions or looking into this sort of thing. And you have to ad lib things on the fly, create NPCs on the fly, and yeah.
So, do you think a Shepherd of Woe would be a subclass of another class or its own class?
That's a really good question. And I've been trying to figure this out for a long time. I was like, so what I did in my homebrew is I just created a like a shepherd's crook, like magic item
Yeah.
that gave you advantage on animal handling checks to try to convince monster goats to do things. So anybody could pick that up. You could be a fighter, you could be a wizard, and then you could just try to convince goats to do things for you. So I think I don't think I would even like mess with the core rules at all. I would just let people like have their own things and then bring in goats as cohorts. It won't play exactly like the card game,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it would be less like create your own specific thing. That being said, I did run like several years ago. I ran a homebrew with just a one off with my wife, and I used the bag of tricks from D&D
Okay.
as like a bag of stuffkin where the plushy nightmare goats were, and so
Yeah.
she was able to pull out these instead of being a panther, it would be some sort of plushy nightmare
Go.
goat thing, some plaid
Yeah.
creature, or like a weasel or whatever. Every time it would be like a little plushy creature that would fight for her. And I really like that. I think there's several, like, you could also modify like the find familiar spell to be like find a deep thing and create like there's a familiar that's like a mini beholder
Yeah.
that you can take, and like their stats are great for deep things.
The gazers. Oh, you know
Yeah.
what, the new beast companions? Actually, a lot of the new companions, the Iron Defender, the Ranger companions, and Tasha, like
Yeah,
the way their stat blocks work, they actually would make good goats.
yeah. Yeah, I was kind of mind blown. My wife was explaining to me the like all the cool stuff that was in Tasha's for
Yeah.
the seems like they finally fixed the Ranger to do the Beastmaster
Every
sort of.
everyone else got like new options, right? To like just change the class or whatever.
Yeah,
The Ranger just
got a
got
new class.
yeah, the Ranger just got a bunch of fixes and new classes.
Yeah, they had a big patch. Yeah. I wonder whether or not people like, how do you feel about that? Like, does it make it too much like World of Warcraft, a little too gamey, too contrived for the purposes of gameplay ability? Like, does it lose its simulation?
Yeah,
Or
I don't
is
know.
it
Like, so first of all, like, I never really had much of an issue with the base Ranger. I mean, clearly, so like with every book that comes out, there's kind of power creep. You just can't get
right?
around it. Like,
Yeah.
when you have Ranger subclasses and they just have spells they know, already
Yeah.
they're kind of way above and beyond your Rangers out of the PHB.
Yeah.
And like, so we do this series where it's like the all class party.
Yeah.
And when we started looking at the Ranger, the first thing is we go, well, what is this class good at? And it's like, well, it's kind of a skill class, heavy exploration, and it's a damage dealer. And then you look at the subclasses and go, okay, can we find some other roles to fill with the subclasses? And for Ranger, it was like, no, all the subclasses just add more damage, essentially,
Yeah, there's
right?
not like the flexibility.
And different ways of doing that more damage.
Yeah.
The closest to adding something different was probably and it might be different with the ones that were now official from Tasha's because they weren't out and they weren't official yet. But like the Beast Companion added a little bit of tankiness to a Ranger only because it was another target and it gave you more hit points essentially. But but pretty much like the Ranger's lane was the most, it seems like one of the most narrow of lanes.
Yeah.
For all of the different subclasses, because most of them, at least some of them, are like would add other elements or roles to that particular class. But
I haven't gotten into a ton of detail on Tasha. Do you feel like the Ranger's more flexible now? It seems like the Ranger's better, but does it have more versatility?
So the problem with the Ranger is a lot of the stuff the Ranger does isn't very mechanical. It just kind of like happens. Like you're gonna be, you don't get lost. You're good at you're good in the wilderness, and it's like all these little things that I feel like get ignored in games by DMs and the players, right? So once you have all these things that you're good at and that get ignored, those elements don't really matter for that class anymore.
Yeah.
So by replacing them, yes, because it's going to be like, oh, you now have advantage on, or you're not advantage, or you have expertise on these skills that you didn't have before. You have this, instead of having this really narrow ability where it's like, well, you get some languages and advantage on these two different checks if it involves orcs, right? Now it's like you have this like lesser hunter's mark ability you can just use. So it's in some ways like that. It has gotten better and more functional. Like I think their hide in plain sight before was kind of weird, where like it took time to do it, and it was like you weren't going to do it right away, and now it's just like you could just be invisible or something.
Yeah.
It just felt like the ranger had to jump through more hoops to do their cool stuff than other classes sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of the takeaway I had from it initially.
But
With the gruff thing, like really all I did was took like the wolf base stats and then put a crit on it. So it's
yeah.
like on crit cast sleep for the stuffkin guys.
Oh
So
yeah.
for
Yeah.
like a ranger, I would just kind of do the same thing. I would like do like I like the idea of like tweaking the existing system as minimally as you can in order to keep the sense of solidity and of the system. I don't know. The thing about homebrews for me is that you don't want it to spiral into feeling like it's Calvin Ball. Like the DM's just like completely making everything up on the fly. There needs to be a sense of legitimacy to D&D for the shared fantasy. So,
yeah, consistency. Like consistency is the thing that you need. And if you're doing things on the fly and maybe you're not as experienced of
with the rules, like if you're solid with the rules, then you can do a lot more.
Yeah, it becomes easier to do things on the fly.
Yeah.
So.
But Tasha's, man, for a thin book, man, it has a lot in it.
It is. Yeah. I mean, a lot of new subclasses. You know, the races have become very fluid to the point where they almost don't mean nearly as much as they used to.
Yeah.
And I definitely see some ways to like hoard that over, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Like I know there was also things like you're like, well, like, you know, the mountain dwarf got more stats than most of the other races. So we're like, so where they got them, yeah, they were only really beneficial kind of if you're a martial character. So a lot of their other abilities kind of got negated, right? Like, doesn't matter if you get armor and weapon proficiencies if you're going to be martial because you get them anyway. So it doesn't do anything. So,
right.
You know, we just assumed it was because they were saying, well, because they get these extra stats, they're weighted that way in order that was the balancing mechanic.
Right.
But now it's like, well, you know, if you're playing a martial character, you can trade all those out for different proficiencies now. Get other stuff instead. I mean, they're like tool proficiency. Like you can trade your armor and weapons for tools.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, so you could pick up like another four tool proficiencies.
Tool proficiencies aren't really going to break the game.
No, they're not. And that kind of stuff really depends on your GM as to how useful they are. Because some games that never comes up and they never get used. In other games, it's much more often. I think in our games, it's more reliant on the player. Like, as a GM, we need to see the player go, like trying to explore that stuff for us to like remember. Oh, right, they had these tools. They're going to use them, and we try and incorporate them more anyway. Just because it's like, well, if players have them, why not?
Yeah, makes sense. So you can just kind of like mix and match from your class and race however you want.
Yeah, languages, any kind of proficiency, and your stats.
Yeah,
you can move. They also have like a generic block where you just make your own race. It's very weak and terrible compared to any other pre-constructed, but it's like medium or small. Yeah, it gives you flexibility. It's like basically, you know, you can, you know, make stats wherever you want. You can pick like 2 languages, and you can be medium or small. Your speed's 30, and it's like pick one of these abilities, and it's like get a skill, get dark vision. Like you are much better just picking one of the races.
Right. I mean, it's been pretty obvious from like even from the PHB that the classes sort of operate within these sort of rules of like, okay, you get +2 to this, and you get these languages, and you get, you know, this amount of bonuses to keep everything sort of within range. So it sort of makes sense to make it actual player facing stuff. So yeah, progress and flexibility, but stronger just trying to find something out of the box.
Yeah, I like all the feats they added in there.
What's your favorite?
Do I have a favorite? I like the fact that you can take the weapon style as a feat.
Oh yeah.
I like, you know, the chef feat the skill feats are kind of interesting as well.
Oh yeah. I heard about the chef one. I'm like, I want to run a whole campaign on.
Yeah, like stuff. So, and it's completely different than what they did in the UA. Where in the UA, it just kind of gave you like bonuses against being poisoned and stuff like that. And now it's like, now you're like making treats and, basically gives you just another way to try and help heal the party during short rest and give them temporary hit points. So that one feat like allows you to kind of do buffs and some healing. So it's kind of cool.
It's like a whole fun little play style too. When I heard that they were doing that, I was like, I'm so excited. I've always wanted to play like a gourmand sort of adventure that's out there trying to discover the best of flavors and cooking up some monster meat for people.
And I think the other fun thing is though, like the weapon feats. It's like, either piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of cool as well. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Like you said, they packed a lot in.
Yeah. It seems like a solid book. Like I am very, very excited about the warlock and the talisman. I don't know why. I just like everything about it makes me really excited. Like I was telling you before, playing like you were saying about the ranger being narrow, man. Sorcerer, like you can take that thing in so many ways. Like the divine soul sorcerer is just crazy flexible, and being able to like, so my main's like the divine soul sorcerer warlock combo, and being able to use the pact of the talisman as your point of origin, staying safely out of the way and using that as your point of origin for healing. Like I think even with like, it would depend on your DM how they want to treat it, but I would imagine it would make your character look less threatening too. Like a lot of smart characters are going to want to kill the healer first, but if the healer is way out of the range and this necklace is doing all the healing, like I think it would require a bigger logical leap for the creatures to actually target you. And
also I feel like the talisman and the genie patron probably have a lot of synergy.
Yeah, that genie patron looks cool.
Yeah. It is like you can go into the lamp or whatever the vessel is or whatever, stuff like that. So there's definitely some fun things. Originally, the talisman in the UA was more of a buffer.
Yeah. I think it still is that way. Like you get a re-roll and you get.
It is a little bit, saves. But not as much where you're buffing like other party members, which is like really different from what the warlock generally does.
Though it isn't different from what my warlock does. So I don't know. I just feel lucky that they wrote something that was just for me. I don't know who else would want this, but I see it and I'm like, oh, I could give the guy that's wearing it shield. Like I don't intend to wear it. I give it to someone else, and then like be able to cast shield on them and be able to heal them as my point of origin and give them bonuses on saves. It's crazy good. But yeah, no, it's not what you would want your typical warlock. I see warlocks as being kind of like a Gish type thing where they're like a little bit more martial and stronger damaging classes and just eldritch blasting all day long. Yeah. I don't think that type of warlock is going to want this talisman. Like, why would you do that compared to Pact of the Tome or Chain?
Well, and that's what I'm excited for them to take the warlock in different directions. So it's just not like all I do is eldritch blast.
Yeah, I've got to support warlock.
Which that's going to be hard too because you don't get that many spells, right? So it's
you don't. No, well, like I was saying, he's primarily sorcerer. Yeah. So, and then he has warlock so that he doesn't ever bottom out as a healer.
Yeah.
And then so he splashes that way. So divine soul sorcerer, like to heal and buff. But mostly what he does is just like I twin cast haste, and then I have a barbarian and a monk in my party. It's a 3-man party, so it just the one twin cast haste takes our action economy up to be more like a 4.5 person party.
Yeah. Oh man, that double haste on the barbarian monk, that's so much speed.
Yeah.
I played in a one shot playtest game. I played a laser monk centaur.
Laser centaur monk?
Yeah.
What is this?
So the laser monk is, oh my god, I can't even think of the real name for it. It's in the Sword Coast Adventures guide. It's the one they throw radiant bolts and stuff.
Oh yeah, with like the chi blasts.
Yeah.
Like Hadoukens.
I've been calling it a laser monk so long that I forget the real name. But so, and like we were allowed to have 2 magic items, so I was like, oh okay. and we were high enough level where you could run across water and up walls. So I took horseshoes of speed that add like 30 foot of movement, and they're not an attunement item.
Oh man, so your movement was 80 or 70?
90. I was moving
90.
at a 90, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't actually do anything, but I was just like would run around the battlefield because I could, and throw my lasers at people.
It's a fun visual when you get to
I don't know that it was effective, but it was fun to do. Sun Soul, that's what it's called.
Yeah, Twidcast says hide behind a rock, wait until the fight to end, and pick everyone back up.
Is it peeking over the rock? Is it okay to come out yet?
Is it okay?
So we're at 10 minutes past the hour mark. Final thoughts as we head out?
Final thoughts.
Play Gruff.
Awesome. Play some Gruff. It's a good
Be
one.
Awesome. Play Gruff.
A good way to while away a couple minutes during a pandemic, because it's a single player and co-op mode, and can play one-on-one. So if you have somebody in your house that wants to play Gruff, you can play Gruff, and if you don't, then you can still play Gruff. And
even if you have no friends at all, this is the game for you.
This is the game for you, right? And it's a challenging time, so thanks to everybody.
You gotta work that into the marketing. Do you like to play games but have absolutely zero friends? I got the thing for you, my friend.
I got the thing for you.
Well, with that, until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Thanks.